Sure you want to start streaming. Yep. Yepper. I want to start streaming.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, not what you don't.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
Rock Flux.
Let's get this show on the road.
And a bright, or I should say a dark, good morning to you. Dark in many ways. I haven't finished putting up the name of this show, which I'm going to do. It's the 16th of July, and it's called Living in a World Gone Mad. It almost sounds like it's something I might have said before, but it bears repeating. The title card I forgot to put up. There's always something. I do this stuff at the last minute. This title card's going to freak you out when you see it. And I have to say this stream contains a paid promotion. These are the various things I should have done before I got on the air. And, I didn't. But I have done now. And, this is insane. And I like it.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
There you go. That only brought the CP up to 6.7. That's insider talk for computing. I had a fiber bar and some kind of strawberry breakfast bar as a base because I had a Tylenol and an aspirin with my cola. Supposedly, if you take caffeine with the Tylenol, it makes it better. That's what some doctor told somebody who was getting taking it for a tooth extraction. Don't take my advice for it. I'm not a medical professional, and I don't give medical advice. I was just saying somebody said that. Anyway, here I am at 5:35 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the former United States. As I said before, it's July 16th. It's a Friday in the calendar year 2021. And let me get a drink from the Loving Cup, the morning show. And I'm drinking a Diet Cola, and those things are supposedly not good for you. But we're going to get into that a little bit. But since it is the weekend, I had the air conditioner on a little while ago. But since it is the weekend, then we might as well deal with
Weekend weather.
And here's what it's looking like in my neck of the woods. I had a horrible night of sleep. That's why I'm up. I got up at 4. I really got up at 1, to tell you the truth. It's 70 degrees outside of the studio right now. And muggy. And today it's looking like it's going to get up to 86. And I'm sure the humidity is going to stick with us. 50% chance of a thunderstorm, 68 overnight. That's meaningless. That means most of the night it's still going to be in the 70s. Saturday, same deal, 60% chance of a thunderstorm. 82 for the high, 63 for the low. Finally, that might be better sleeping weather. Saturday night. Sunday, cloudy, 81 degrees, 63 again for the overnight. And next week it's looking like more 80s, but at least the evenings, the overnights are going to be in the 60s. So that's your
Weekend weather.
Glad that you could join me. I'm here every day. And
Quality, quantity, and variety.
Rock Flux.
Let's get this show on the road.
you hear that extra little drum beat. Yesterday I had this weird buzz, like it was an electronic buzz, like buzz. And I hooked up this new thing, and I'm like, oh man, don't tell me I'm going to have some kind of weird short blowout. But it seemed to come over from this area. So I don't know if it was this light, but if I turn this light off, because it's early in the morning, you see what I mean? That's what we got. So I got to keep that light on, and that's not hooked up to anything that I'm computing with right now. So in fact, the only things hooked up to the firm and the power major power source are the computers. And it's just not. I think it's an 1800 watt, rated at 1800 watts. And there's no way that these two monitors and that Mac Mini and the other one, be lucky if we're at 600 watts with those things. 800 tops, which means I should have 1,000 watts to play with, 1,000 Charlie watts. So, oh man. So hopefully that one aspirin and one Tylenol and this caffeine will kick in within the next 10 or 15 minutes. And I will be somewhat, I was going to say sane, but man, I'm insane. This is insane. If I would have, you see how I was behind my time getting this show started, even though it's early in the morning. But I'm trying to avoid the street noise, which is inevitably going to start towards the end of the show. And I have a picture of that to show you, I believe. I'm trying to think if that's the daily image. No, that's the bar. Title card, food and garden. Image 4 is the bikini. Actually, I've got to bring another image in here. Let's see. Image. And we'll call this outside. Outdoors. Okay, outdoors. I'm trying to set this up. Unload image when not showing. Browse. And this would be called street. Okay. I also have to make sure I put in a thing here, and I have to check this property. Unload image when not using. I added a few new images today, and I want to make sure that I don't have them just eating up my CPU. I'm just, I'm working with a program that is open source, and, when you're dealing with that kind of thing, it's constantly being updated, and people who are using it are supposed to report. But as you can see, the images just popped up, whether I wanted it to or not. This is out front of my house. And you could see the little mini excavator there. But the main point is, between the excavator and the car, you could see this black, asphalt, macadam, whatever they want to call it, hole that was just about filled. But that hole was entirely dug out yesterday. And you can imagine the noise using, and I don't know if they use a smaller device or a bigger one to dig it out. But it was just like they were scraping the concrete to do it. There's a nice apartment building across the street, the brick one, the one with the parking lot in front of it. But that yellow house, when I first moved here about 5 years ago, that was fully occupied, and the front porch was like a lot, it was like cleaner. But there was like an older couple lived on the left-hand side of that, like half of a double, whatever you call them. They moved out, and then there was a guy on the right who used to fix air conditioners or something like that on the right, and he moved out. And he used to take care of the place, so it was brighter and cleaner. But it's sitting empty now for 4 years. But that's not the point. I'm just trying to show you. But that house will probably end up selling for $100,000 or more, $150,000. Though it's probably not worth, maybe it'll sell for 20 or 50. But the way real estate prices are right now, it's insane, But anyway, I just wanted to show you that's what was going on. This was the end of the day when they had it just about filled in. I think it's filled in by now. But that's what was going on yesterday and why what I was talking about, the noise outside. And it's like the third time they dug that hole. Yeah, you tell me. It's kind of hot in here, stuffy. So I don't know. I may turn the air conditioner on just for the sake of my own personal, needs, even though I'll have to deal with that sound. My chair's falling down already. Darn it. Yeah. So, anyway.
Good morning.
How the heck you doing?
Okay.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And the usual in the morning mail check. So here's a new concept they have. Cheers, limited time offer. What's it say? Accept your card today and get the benefits of a platinum MasterCard. With all the sprinkles and stuff on there. I mean, they're really going crazy with this credit stuff. I mean, this is every day. I mean, I have no interest in it other than to show you how crazy this is. Indigo. I think these are the guys. Let's see what their terms are. An annual fee of $125 and $125 a year thereafter, and 29.9%. So 30% interest. You can see that. And I guess it's based on, if interest rates go up, that could probably go up as well. So this is that classic thing that they give some poor person, poor stooge, a $300 balance or whatever. They take the $125 annual fee right off the top. And so the person starts out paying 30% interest on something they didn't even on things before they even bought anything. And like I always said, well, I don't always say it, but I say it often. After about 3 or 4 months, they've got the card maxed and they're getting 30% interest on $300 or $500 because that's usually the starting interest they give to people on these things. And so the person, it just it compounds and they're, and within the year they're in collections. Their credit is shot. And these things all boast and push themselves as this will help you build your credit and stuff. They're just scams. And why do they allow that to happen? And you know what you must get these things. If you don't get them, then you're probably at such a high income bracket, right? That you're not on the list or something. You're not on any list. But I can't imagine that because I get them all the time, and my credit is okay. I have a credit card. I've got a legitimate credit card, with no, no yearly fee or anything. And I've got a fairly low interest rate, low 20s, and that's pretty good for a credit card these days, right? If you can get close to 20, I mean, that's not bad. But I just use it because it's good to have one credit card. It's good to have no credit cards, really. But I got it because of, as I say, mainly this reason.
I've resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered.
Because I've resigned. So I'm I'm done. My work is my work now. This is my work. I don't get paid for it. I lose money on it, but it is my work. I just live in the creative world. But let's get into the show and just let me reiterate what I ended up writing down here. Living in a world gone mad, okay? And we'll look at the title card, which I literally shot this morning about a half hour ago. So, title card. Ah! Yes, that is yours truly. Gone mad. Look at that. This is insane. Now you got second thoughts about me, right? Well, I have that program. I use this Mac, and I do have that photo booth thing, which allows you to have these distorted, stretch your face and all that kind of weird stuff. But yeah, making sense of the insanity. That's the theme today. Because it's insane. I mean, what more can I say? But before we do that, I want to go through two things. One, I often talk about my garden. This is a picture behind, the bait. It's on a wooden cutting board, but that, it's a whole wheat tortilla wrap, right? And I don't know why this edit settings things is still up. Let me get rid of that. I'm sorry. And you didn't see that, but I did. And you're looking at two kinds of lettuces and tomatoes. Well, both those lettuces and those tomatoes, this was the basis of a sandwich I had yesterday. I put some other stuff on it. But I wanted to show that those two lettuces and those tomatoes, that's from my garden, my backyard garden. And you can grow that stuff too. And in these days, it's like I don't have to really shop, So when I go shopping, the type of things I usually get for, like, especially from like June through even November, like, right up to Thanksgiving, so to speak, are like just condiment type of items, like, like olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, preferably first cold pressed. Maybe some spices that I'm not growing in the garden, like a black pepper or something like that. And I like mayo on with tomatoes. It's just a thing, like on a sandwich. So that, and some salad dressing, since I have lettuce. And I've got kale and things like that growing in the backyard. And then a few other items here or there. But I mean, like I never really had success growing big onions. I've got tons of, like, I've got 100, like, scallions, chives, whatever the hell you call those things. I got to dig them out of the ground. It's just that they're in the ground. You got to clean them. And I've neglected my yard the past 2 days. In fact, I neglected the flowers on my porch. I hope they survive. They were looking really bad towards the end of the day yesterday, but I didn't want to go out because I'm going to show you the daily image. And this daily image needs to be shrunk down. This is going to take up my CPU a little bit. A picture of Frank Sinatra and a beer sign, so you kind of know what is coming up. Remember yesterday I showed you my bar room, and I said that's not the way it really looks. That was like 3 years ago or something. Well, this was yesterday. I decided, as I mentioned in the morning, that I was considering walking up the street and getting a six-pack. Well, I did. That was my daily exercise. So I kind of avoided doing just about everything else. I need to shrink this a little more so you can see some of the bar. Let's see. Actually, I want to I'll take it up a little more now. So, this was yesterday. This is me. Now, on the right-hand side, you see like saltine crackers and some garbage and stuff. It's just I don't have the bar cleaned off. I mean, I live here by myself. But, if you recall the other picture that you saw, that black thing that has the July and August calendar on is a refrigerator. So that's behind the refrigerator. Above it, that big black rectangle, above the clock, and that pack of spring water is what that is. That's a TV, pretty big TV. So I've got TV in my cave, big TV in the bar, refrigerator behind the bar. And then you could see on the wall, I just have all this goofy stuff, right? And all kinds of lights and things from all seasons just hanging there. Like if you looked a little bit to the right, you'd see like St. Patrick's shamrock. You'd see a pumpkin, jack-o'-lantern. It's like the Holiday Inn. On the left, there's some Mardi Gras beads you could see underneath the sign. There's some Christmas balls. It's just like everything's there. I leave everything up, and it's just lit. I could have messed with the lighting to like give this more of a glow. Like I really should have boosted the saturation on this, and I guess I can, to give you a better idea of it. But yeah, that's ye daily image. And you can see I've got a mug and an ashtray. And I was drinking light beer with light beer on ice with some lime juice and margarita salt put in. You can see my Zippo lighter next to that black and tan Guinness bar mat, and some cigars to the right. And if you look closely, you'll see a keyboard and a mouse. And above that, it's hard to see, but that's actually a monitor because I have another computer in there that's basically set up primarily for music. But if you look just to the left of the beer can, that hockey puck black circular thing is the Echo Dot. So I was using that yesterday, just asking, for play this song, play that song. That's kind of a funky space, though. It changes from time to time and season to season, but basically it's come a long way. And you can see on the clock it was like 20 after 12. I usually drink like 12 to 2, just about 2 hours. Anyway, that's, you're watching...
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Or listening to.
Making up the rules as we go along.
But that's my life. So, it's fun, to have a bar. That's my kitchen. So, from this angle, it's just a bar. But if you were behind the bar, like I sit here, this is taken from a picture of if guests come over. I have bar stools on this side. But I have a bar stool in the back, too, where I usually, if I have people over, I'll be behind the bar. And the view I would have if I were behind the bar, in other words, looking at us, you would see kitchen cabinets and a sink and things like that. And on the other side of that black refrigerator behind the bar is a washer and, our washer and dryer. So it's this multi-purpose room. And it functions, and you just get into the zone when you're sitting at the bar. It's like you're sucked in with all those images and everything, and you're in the bar. But it's my laundry room, and when I'm facing the other way, I've got a cutting board. If I'm doing the old, making a sandwich, this is on the other side of that room on my cutting board. I'm making a sandwich, and it's a kitchen. So, you got that? I'm winded. That's from not sleeping well and I guess drinking. I only had don't think I had more than four or five beers, like tops. I mean, somewhere in between 4 and 5. I don't drink a lot of beer anymore. But I might have been drinking them fast. There was a time when I could split a case with a friend and then go out drinking and be out all night when I was younger. I mean, I was a real beer drinker. But I don't know. That kind of thing would probably kill me now. Yeah, it's crazy. So we haven't done one of these early shows in a while, you know. The sun's just coming out. It's 5:58 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm broadcasting live to no one. I've got 0 concurrent viewers. Looks like a couple people may have bopped in and then bopped out. Curiosity seekers. And, yeah, it's pretty crazy. But this is insane. You know, just to get back to this title card. You know, I was going, you know, you got to be brave to show yourself like that. But it's like, I'm a nut. I'm a madman. You know, that's part of my personality. You know, I'm crazy, you know.
Really funny. Really funny. What do you mean I'm funny?
So, you know, you just got to have fun.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
It's going all right. You know, it's like I don't really have a hangover. It's just I'm not 100%. But it's my own darn fault. And it's kind of like hot and stuffy in here. And you know, and I have a lot of work to do today outside. A lot of catch-up work. You know, I've got these vines that are out of control, so I've got to clip all those things down. I got to probably do some weeding in the garden. I have to, you know, I'm going to have to water even though there's like a 40% chance of a thunderstorm. It's probably not going to happen. I got to water the flowers on the front porch. Hopefully I've got to get some sun, even though my tan's still kind of here. But I mean, it's not about tanning. It's about getting that vitamin D and you boosting your immune system to fight off these things that we have no idea. But making sense of the insanity is the title of this show. And, you know, I watch all kinds of things on YouTube because that's what I watch. I don't do the TV thing anymore. I don't have TV. Except over the air, I could get through one of those things. I think I demonstrated that before. You can pick up like a local channel, and the local channel usually has a couple like side band broadcasts, like something like Me TV. Did you ever see that? It's all old shows, like you could watch the Rockford Files or something. And that comes over the air. That was like part of when they were making the transition to digital. I don't know how long they're going to keep that up either. Because I got a sneaky feeling. I mean, obviously, the amount of power to broadcast, to do digital broadcasting, you know, versus the revenue that they receive from it. Remember, everything's about revenue. And in the climate of a corporatocracy, you know, I wouldn't be surprised that if the National Association of Broadcasters isn't putting pressure on the FCC to almost let them not have to do that. Particularly these people that probably aren't really turning a profit on it. Having been involved in media management and sales, the way I see what they're most likely, and I don't know this exactly for sure, but it's probably what they're doing. I think these sideband stations like Me TV, or if you ever heard of Comet, I think it's like you know, B sci-fi type of stuff. At least that's what I get in this area. Then there's an NBC affiliate. But I think what they do is I think they use those as like package deals. So they say, and they're covered on the local cable. So I guess, maybe that's another incentive. But in other words, if you buy a spot or two on the morning show, we'll give you, 15 spots run of station on Me TV or something like that, Or there may just be these sentimental little fools that used to watch like the Rockford Files or something. And they'll like sponsor it. Because there's like those ego. Some people use advertising as ego. I realize I'm keeping up this morning show, making sense of the insanity with this caricature of me pushed through that weird filter on, that it's it's pretty crazy, man. But anyway, that's a little bit of behind the scenes TV stuff, in case you were interested,
Okay.
But so I was talking about watching TV, YouTube TV, not TV. And, I was watching a little bit about, yesterday was interesting. So part of it was, in fact, before I went to sleep, I was like caught up. I must have not wasted, but I must have spent about an hour watching these discussions, interviews of these like neurologists discussing ALS, Alzheimer's, and various brain disorders, and how these and these weren't new. I thought they were recent, but as it turned out, like the one guy was talking about his book, and he was talking about when his next book comes out, and he said his next book was coming out in 2019. So this stuff's like a couple of years old. And this was surprising to me because what they were talking about is breakthroughs in diet to help patients with neurological problems and things like dementia and stuff like that. And that your gut, that most of the problems they were trying to say, and they had anecdotal evidence, and the idea was to move forward. So it'd be interesting to follow up, and you may want to do this. I might do this too, to see what has come up over the past couple of years. But that the diet and inflammation and literally bacteria, they were tying in as the primary cause of these diseases, with the exception of people that have been exposed to like toxic chemicals and things of that nature, And of course, there was also a genetic disposition for these things. And I don't want to get too heavy into this kind of thing, but it's interesting to note, how much, because we do have that. Now, we're not talking about normal talk here where I talk about our consciousness, which is something, outside of the bioelectric brain. Now I'm talking about neurological. I'm talking about the brain and the neural network within this body, and how it's now known, which, it was never really known many years ago. In fact, even in recent years, that we have that second brain more or less in our gut, and even similar type of things towards the heart. So that this idea of, acting with your heart and I'm putting my hand on my heart, feelings, nothing more than feeling. Oh God, I forgot about that song. But that there's this whole connection between, because it's the body, and people too many times, it's primarily because we have doctors who are, and this whole neurological thing obviously ties in with, with the concept of insanity. But this isn't a medical, program about neurology. But I just want to get this out of the way. That the whole concept of, because of specialists, doctors specialize. So you have somebody who specializes in neurological studies, people that are, a heart doctor, urologists, right? Whatever, cancer doctors, people that, basically deal with, bones and muscles and weird things like that, whatever. So because of there's so many specialists, and our society's used to this concept of specialists, that we see the human body as this detached thing, right? You have a toothache. I don't want to think about it. But, you have problems with your eye, your vision, you go to see an eye doctor. You go, problems with your mouth, a mouth doctor. Your ears ringing, you go see somebody who specializes in that. And the same with people who have brain disorders or, heart disease, whatever. And so we see ourselves as a collection, more or less, of things, instead of looking and saying this whole thing is interconnected. And this gets back to the idea of what I was trying to talk about, the planet, and how trees and through fungi, is their neural network. So we think, when I say we, I mean modern science, those who study this, particularly, they have investigated this, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, some of these deep forested areas that span states. They have found that there seems to be a fungi network that extends, hundreds and hundreds of miles, and is somehow interconnected with the trees and the various flora there. And there's some kind of communications going on there at whatever level it is, we don't know. And then, of course, you got guys like McKenna and other people, that are into this whole idea of psilocybin and that its influence on everything from, how humans became, developed language and culture. Now, I don't go as far as that, but I mean, they literally, these are ideas that are thrown out there. But, so the idea of fungi playing a big part, a major role in the whole interconnection, and then our connection to the planet itself. So, the reason that we would see something like, as we have seen in previous shows. I'm trying to look here. I just had to bring this up for the hell of it. But, I mean, the reason we have an appreciation, as I've talked about, the beauty of nature, for example, and, is that we're connected to this. So it's not only that we mentally, don't see ourselves as our own ecosystem, as our own unit, right? Interconnected unit. But we don't see, the fact that this unit is also connected to the planet, and that we're all, part of this overall kind of, ecosystem or, Gaia, whatever you want to call it. But the idea that these guys were talking about, and I'm not going to talk, the show isn't about this. I just wanted to get this out of the way because it was an interesting discussion. And so they were saying, it's diet, and a lot of people have been talking about this in many ways about your gut. And that the problem that most people have are because of the bacteria in your gut, this microbiome and all that stuff, whatever. And I'm no expert in any of this stuff, and I'm just telling you, this was just a discussion I was watching, but there were 2 different interviews with 2 different neurologists or people studying and writing who have written books on this, and, you know, New York Times bestseller type people, you know. And they were all MDs, actual MDs. So that was just interesting stuff. But, you know, that just got me to thinking. I mean, you know, and what they were doing is they were talking about things like ketones, you know, and various diets. And, you know, like, for example, I do the thing where I rarely eat. Even yesterday I was drinking, and after I was a bad boy yesterday. Because, you know, after I had a couple beers, you know, I was hungry, right? Because I didn't really eat a big lunch. Because I had that wrap. It was like in the morning when I ate that. You get up real early. So if after the show, I'm, you know, in a couple hours, you know, if you wake up at 4, okay, think about it. You know, 4 hours pass by, it's 8 o'clock. You know, 6 hours, it's only 10, right? So you're ready for lunch at 10 or something like that. But anyway, so after that, I ate, like, I had some in the freezer. I had a couple of these frozen White Castle burgers, more than a couple. And then I followed that up with a couple, not just one, but like 2 of those ice cream versions of a Snickers bar, right? I mean, the worst. And the problem is that it's between, I mean, that was the classic junk food, and it was everything that these guys, these doctors were talking about to avoid, is that they were saying it's not that meat is bad, right? And fat from meat. Like, you do need fat in your diet. But the problem is it's the meat, the processed meat, and what they feed the cattle in this country that makes that meat not healthy. So, you know, that's why people are into this grass-fed beef and stuff like that, which is really hard to find for the average person. I mean, if you're wealthy, it's great for somebody like a Joe Rogan or something to sit there and talk about this, and, you know, Jordan Peterson or whoever that guy is, you know, these guys who say, you know, they go on these diets and carnivore diets and different stuff like that. But, you know, for somebody who's broke, you know, or just trying to get by, it's like you're not going to go out there and buy a $22 steak and have that like a couple of times a week, grass fed. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, so what a lot of people end up doing, they end up getting, you know, cheap burgers, and, you know, it's just garbage. And they think they're on some kind of carnivore diet, and they're eating this subpar meat. And the same goes with vegetarians, you know, and these people that are caught up into they think this stuff they're getting is organic. But they have to remember it's the FDA stamping that as organic, and the threshold for organic through the FDA is very low, you know. So, you know, so it really boils down to the idea of, it's like what I do is like I grow my own, you know, but it still comes down to the idea of healthy food. You should have fiber in your diet, and that fiber in your diet should probably come from vegetables. And things like broccoli and kale are a really good choice of fiber and vitamins and minerals. And spending time outside and getting the sun, you know, at least that's my thing. You know, excuse me. That one breakfast bar I got was garbage, but I wanted something soft that I wasn't, you know, my teeth, you know, I didn't want to. I'm still, you know, I'm doing this xylitol thing, okay? And there's some anecdotal evidence that xylitol actually helps, like, kind of fill in cavities a little bit. Don't ask me anything about it, and I'm not trying to tell you that this is give you advice, right? Just anecdotal evidence. I've been doing it for the past month, and it's helped me a little bit. But that's like knock on wood, because I take every day as it comes, because I still have this fear of, and then, of course, the other one. Remember, the tooth. The tooth. These are Tony Caravan regulars. But, yeah, trying to make sense of the insanity of what's going on. So apart from that, like, serious stuff that I watched yesterday, towards the end, and I was realizing I was starting to fall asleep, and I'm going, okay, that's good. I got to get a good night's sleep. Because one of the other things these doctors were talking about, and it's not just them, I've heard this from many people, and you're saying, what does it have to do with insanity? But it does. Is that it's, like, for example, I guess what I started when I was talking about those burgers and drinking, and I was a bad boy. I don't eat. I probably had those White Castle burgers and those Snickers ice cream bars no later than 3 o'clock, maybe 2:30. All right. Which means I haven't eaten, and I got up today. By the time I made it downstairs, it's like 5 o'clock. So I went fasted, breakfast is break fast, right? I went from, so say it was 3 and I get up at 5, so that was like 14 hours, and it was probably closer to 15 hours, which is usually what it is, where I didn't eat. And I normally don't, and that's like my normal thing. And this is important, and then a lot of medical professionals have talked about the benefits of fasting, right? Because it's natural, in our evolution, if you want to say that. And I'm not saying evolution as in Darwinism. I mean in our history of our bodies, that it wasn't like we were, this idea of 3 squares a day type of concept, and then a snack at night is the reason there's such high levels of diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And, oddly enough, these neurologists were talking about dementia as almost like a type 3 diabetes, And so this idea of carbs that, sugars that really kick out the sugars, into the body, and that and that the bad bacteria just really like sugar, and that people who have antibiotics, who've had throughout their life, have taken a lot of antibiotics, are more prone to a lot of problems. And then the last thing is that everything, inflammation is really at the root of everything. And so the idea is to basically try to avoid inflammation. It's, just some interesting stuff. So, you take that with a grain of salt. Like I said, it's just something I was watching. But then after I was watching that discussion, I always watch, I get caught up in some of these serious discussions. YouTube's like that. And it's, it reminds me of what PBS used to be like before it became like political, right? And issue driven, And so that's what I try to do with my show here in the morning, and been doing, except when I get on these like crazy tirades every now and then, once in a blue moon. I don't do that too often. Or I get really critical of something, like ticks me off. But it's the idea of we could talk about other things besides these self-centered issues of narcissistic sociopaths, the cult of personality, and politics as pop culture, which seems to be what I'm trying to get at, is the insanity that's out there. And how do you make sense of this insanity? Right? I mean, I've seen so many things lately that just have they drive you batty. So, how do you live in a world gone mad? That's the whole thing. Living in a world gone mad. And, it's difficult. So, for a guy like me, I basically grow my own food and try to live a healthy life and get enjoyment out of being outdoors, and then even when I'm not necessarily doing what's right, I'm sitting here listening to music in this image here you're looking at, and I've contoured my living space to be, it's like I don't have to go to the neighborhood bar and spend money and deal with it. I've got my own bar. So I'm hanging out, having a brew, listening to my favorite tunes, not somebody else's tunes. And and I'm happy or at peace or having fun. Somebody else is there, it's even more fun. And if not that guy. But if she was there, it would even be way more fun. I mean, I have to keep showing that picture. What can I say? But the other stuff that was on YouTube was scary. And I don't, like I said, the things I follow on YouTube, first of all, I stopped following these posers and the YouTube millionaires a long time ago because it got to be ridiculous. Hey, we just bought a new truck. We bought a new car. Look, we're putting a new roof on our house now. We're doing this. It's like, come on, man. You started out in a trailer and you said, please come along, like and subscribe. Come along with us on our journey. We're just two people trying to live off the grid and make a living. And now you're living in like a chateau that's probably, if you put it on the market, would sell for $1.2 million. Right? Ridiculousness. So, I stopped watching that nonsense. It's amazing the amount of money people make on YouTube. It's not jealousy either, trust me. I mean, I make nothing. I'm demonetized since 2013. They never allowed me to monetize. Before they had the word demonetization, that basically I was demonetized. So in effect, I guess you could blame me for the word because they refused to monetize me. They wouldn't let me make money on AdSense or whatever it was, because they didn't like my web. I had a website. I told this story before, but I had a website that was like I thought was better than Google, a search, and they tried to claim that site was a pay-to-play site, but it wasn't. I just it was curated. So we would, and there was two of us doing it. And it took us several years to build that because it was just two people. But we had created this site. It still exists and people use it, but it's hidden. So only people we know use it. And they still swear by it. And a lot of people use it as their start page. It's their home page on their browser. The idea we had was that you don't need a search engine that gives you a couple of million results, right? How many times have you gone to page 100,000, right? You don't. Most people just go to page 1. Sometimes they'll go to page 2, but most people just go to page 1. And page 1 is mostly paid to play, all right, to begin with. So the whole concept of Google is just like useless. They're either shoving something down your throat, or it's their own editorial giving it to you. So we came up with the thing and said, what are people searching for? And we opened it to the idea of having not, if there was something you couldn't find on our so-called search site, you could make a suggestion and a request, and then we would add that. But what we did was we said, well, what are people really looking for? What are people searching for? And we did the research on that. And so what we did was we provided categories, kind of like in the early days of the internet, right? But better, because we didn't just give you a category and a name and you had to go through various steps to do it. We basically, in fact, I believe we invented the idea of the icon and the thing next to it. I mean, there was a lot of breakthroughs with that. It was actually featured when the iPhone, the iPod, or was the iPhone first came out, the iPod even. It was featured on the Apple website. And I think that's when Google went after me, because Steve Jobs actually put it on. It was like featured of the day. Site of the day for your app, for your iPhone, or what the iPod. I think what happened was the iPod and you could get an iPod that was exactly like an iPhone, but it wasn't an iPhone, and it was cheaper. And people had come up with these various services, voice over IP, Wi-Fi type things, to use on that. So in effect, you could be sitting somewhere where there was Wi-Fi and having a phone conversation, and a person next to you, because they looked exactly the same, people didn't know thought you had an iPhone, because it was the exact same thing. It just didn't have a, whatever. And to this day, I mean, I did have an iPhone at one point with like a Verizon or something like that. But I got rid of the cell phone service because there was no need for it. Everywhere I go, there's Wi-Fi, and in between those places is not, I don't care. I don't go on any long trips or anymore, any of that stuff. So I use a voice over IP. I pay $40 a year for phone service, and that's my home phone service in the house. And I have an app for my iPhone that I can make and receive calls on my iPhone for $40 a year. And that's what I say. My mortgage, taxes, and insurance are $200 a year. I mean, $200 a month, okay? Which is ridiculous. Mortgage, taxes, and insurance are less than $200 a month. I only pay $40 a year for my phone service, and I can use my iPhone. And I don't pay a cable TV bill, right? And I if I needed to, I could get it over the air, right? But I pay an internet bill. And so, I mean, you see how you can live. You basically can retire, and get out of the rat race. And it doesn't mean, and I still own a house, and I have a backyard, and I have this garden, and I have this thing, and I have this stuff. So, it's just the consideration. I mean, times are crazy right now. And, that's part of this whole idea of like making sense of the insanity. A lot of the billionaires now are talking about, a coming like depression. And I know this comes up, and there's always been these naysayers and doomsayers and, people that, the sky's falling type of stuff. And, you take what you hear with a grain of salt. But, some of the people that I've been listening to, hearing them out, were the same people that were kind of predicted what was happening in 2008. And who, the players, people that have, enough money invested in various markets and in various places that they know what's going on. They can see the trends, right? And so they're aware of these things happening before they happen. and they're trying to protect their own money. Now, I don't do that stuff anymore. I don't play that game anymore because that's a stressful thing. You're either, I had a choice. I could have pursued, I used to get offers. I still get them from time to time. I get crazy offers, like job offers, but they're mostly in California. And, they're jobs that are, 6-7 figures, and, good positions, because it's hard to find people now, because a lot of people are just doing what I did. They're just saying, the heck with it. Why do this? So if you know how to do certain things, there's a demand for you. But you have to make a choice, and I made a choice to say, no, I'm going to just decouple myself from the corporatocracy. I want to reduce stress. Stress causes inflammation, to get back to what I was talking about earlier. Inflammation is the cause of most problems, health issues that people have. And you can ask any doctor that. Inflammation is just not good. And stress causes inflammation, not to mention, a bad diet. So I don't want the stress. I didn't want to be a part of the rat race anymore. I put in my time. I worked since I was a kid. I put in long hours. When I had a job, I took it seriously. I was happy-go-lucky usually, and a lot of people looked at me sometimes and, it was a fun workspace, and they think, oh, wow, but they had no idea that I was in there at 5 a.m., and by they walk in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I already put in 4 hours of work. So if I'm like joking around in the morning, or if I take a 2-hour lunch because I'm on the board of some arts council or something like that, and they're thinking, oh, he's it's like, no, you don't get it, right? I put in more hours in the day than you do. It's just that, I can handle it. I'm a time management person, and I get up early in the morning. And yes, I did drink the day before, but in those days, well, actually kind of like now even, I always drank early. I was a happy hours type of guy. So, it wasn't like today, like these days, I'll just do the noon till 2 because I'm a free man. But it would be after work, I'd go to the bar and I'd drink for a couple hours, happy hours, which means I'm home at 7 or so. Have some dinner, watch something, right? Go to bed, and I'd be at the office early in the morning. So even though I had some beers at the bar or whatever, I didn't have a hangover or anything. So I'm working, and people look at you like, these people come in and their eyes are like this. And it's like, where's my coffee? And then they can't function for half the day because they're hungover. I'm like, you never figure that stuff out. It's like I used to, so many places, like people wouldn't go out till like 10 at night, 10 or 11. And I'd be like, I guess that's fine on a Saturday night or something if that's your thing. But to me, it was like, what do you do from 5 to 10? And besides, half the people in the bar when you go in there, if you go into a bar at 11, are whacked out of their minds. I can't tell you how many times, I'd be talking to some girl or something. She'd be like wasted. And in those days, like I said, I'm aged. But, in those days, I'd get these girls, girls talk about, being, guys assaulting them in the bar or something, whatever they say. But I can't tell you how many times girls be pawing at you and grabbing you and stuff, grabbing me and stuff like that. It used to happen all the time because they were drunk. But, nobody really talks about that. But yeah, it used to happen all the time. That's why I never liked being in the bar later at night. I mean, with exceptions, there were some times when I did some experimentation with certain substances and stuff, which I shouldn't have done. My ice cubes have melted, but the CPU is staying low. So, yeah, it's interesting to have solved that problem. So my only fear was that weird electrical sound yesterday. I'm just hoping it had something to do with this lamp or light or something. Scary as hell, though. So, I don't know. So these other things I've been watching, and you've been watching it too, and people that I kind of, so, you know, forget about the YouTube millionaires, all right? Or the posers, right? And all that kind of stuff. Let's just deal with, like, you know, the people trying to, giving you straight talk, all right? And, you know, the talk is that, you know, if this is insane. It's insanity what's going on right now. And you can't really talk about it specifically. Other people talk about it. I don't know how they stay on, you know. I mean, I have a warning, I think, still sitting on my, you know, analytics, whatever, my YouTube dashboard or something, whatever it's called. Ridiculousness. For something that's like, you know, for no reason whatsoever. It's just their way of saying, we're watching you. Yeah. Careful now. Watch what you say. Don't say the thing or that thing or wrong speak. Right? And we're going to throttle you so that you have the lowest number of views of anybody on YouTube. You know, I mean, that's a record in and upon itself. You know, you ever really seen videos get like 5 views, 4 views? Right? I haven't. And I've been watching YouTube for years. You know, like years. 8 years. You know? I mean, or pretty much since its inception. You know? 2 views. I had songs on there and that were up for like months and they had no views. How could you have no views? I mean, that, like, this is a live thing, so there's a live category on YouTube. And so you've got, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of people are on YouTube right now, worldwide, globally. You mean, no, you know, so they obviously aren't listing me in certain areas because you mean there's no curiosity, someone looking at this thing? You know, not a single person is like curious. Like, what is that? Right? No. So it's funny the game they play. And these shows, you get more information, you know, packed into something like this than you do with these posers and YouTube millionaires and all these other, you know, whatever, the media who's pretty much taking over YouTube now, right? It's the second line down. You get recommended, which half the stuff they recommend, you're going like, I don't know why they're recommending that to me. I'm not interested in it. And then next to it is news. You know, I didn't define these orders. You know, maybe you can change that or something in some settings thing, but I've seen it, you know, even when I wasn't logged in. Excuse me. So it's like, yeah. So whether it's, you know, the memes, the title cards are memes, you know, I consider this is a meme, right? You know, and I guess you could say, you know, that's almost like a posing thing, but I mean, I'm just trying to be mad. I originally was just going to put on like crazy. I think I have it somewhere. Crazy Eddie. You ever hear of that? Crazy Eddie, his prices are insane. I think they ended up getting, going out of business, and maybe there was something that happened or something with that company. But it was like on the East Coast mainly, I think. I don't know. I don't know if they franchised around the country or not. This is a long time ago. But there was this guy, Crazy Eddie, and he used to do his own commercials. I think it was him. It might have been an actor. But it was like, Crazy Eddie, his prices are insane. And I was going to put that up because I had found an image of one of his old commercials. And I know I have it somewhere in my computer. But then I said, no, I'll just do it myself. So I just did that. How long does it take to go? So, and I just put it through, and like I say, this program has that face distortion. So, but the news, so whether or not you're listening to some billionaire who has everything to lose in their world, and like I was saying, I'm at a point where I don't feel that stress because I've got nothing to lose. I'm just living my life, and my life is free at this point. So I don't want to make money. I want to live at the poverty level, just below the poverty level. Because when you live below the poverty level, you didn't even have to file income taxes. That's right from the IRS. So it's like you don't have to worry about that stuff. And I don't have to worry, because I did my own taxes. Even I said this before. When I had my own businesses, I always did my own taxes. I never hired an accountant. It took like 2 days sometimes. The first day, was like organizing all your receipts, with the calculator and stuff. And then the second day was putting it all together and filing out the forms. Except when I was collecting sales tax at one point, when I had a part of we were doing some retail sales, then I used to have to file quarterly taxes you had to pay state sales tax, and that was a pain reporting. But even that wasn't that bad because you had to do the quarterly reporting. When you were doing your end of year, you already had those quarter reports. So half the battle was already done. So you just had to take those quarterly reports and then do your federal taxes with that. So I always did that myself. But it was still stressful and a pain, and keeping receipts and doing all this and this, that, the other, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so I'm out of that game. I don't have the stress. I don't have to be anywhere today. Monday, I have a doctor's appointment. That's a pain, okay? Just a checkup. But that's a pain, and I don't like that. That's about as stressful as things get for me. I like it when I just get up when I want to. I do this stuff because this is my thing. If you watch yesterday's show, it's just part of my creative process at the time being. The creative impulse that I have, I've put into this, And at other times I was putting it into, directing it into writing songs, writing books, writing essays, doing this, doing that. Right now I'm doing this, and I can't talk today. Well, nothing I can do is no use even apologizing. It's like, So that's going to happen, until the show ends. So the insanity. So you look at the news, you listen to these guys who have things to lose, who aren't free, who haven't figured that out yet. The real estate market's crazy now. People are putting houses on the market, and they're selling within 3 days, sight unseen. Because people have this cryptocurrency, or they have this cash they've made on the market, because the market is ridiculously has gone up. So people are all, and they're all aware or afraid that this whole house of cards is coming down this fall or at the latest next year. And so people are trying to buy hard goods with this, like, nothing. Like one of the cryptocurrencies, I think, is called Ethereum or something. With this ethereal, it's not even like they used to talk about fiat currency where they print money. Now it's like, think of cryptocurrency. It's digital. It's like, it's like the Fed, they transfer money to the various banks overnight, loaning these banks. And it's just a transaction, right? It's in a ledger, it's a digital ledger, in the cloud, so to speak. So they found this new thing, and that's why the Federal Reserve, the central banks, are now exploring this whole, concept of blockchain technology and things. But it's just invisible money. I mean, it's just they're saying, well, we don't even have to print the bills anymore. All we have to do is electronically transfer it, add it to the ledger. It's crazy. That's crazy too. But anyway, so there's all these people that have all these ledgers, in their various accounts, be they crypto, blockchain type of thing, Bitcoin type of stuff, or accounts, basically Wall Street stock type of accounts. And they're just doing this mad dash in buying physical property, physical things with something that they have, which isn't physical, right? It's not really real, but it's considered to be. It has a value. It's said to have a value. And so the idea is that, if you have real estate, and I said this before, if you're living in a house that is, put it this way, if you're at a certain age, if you're in your 50s, say, right, and you're living in a house that's worth about a quarter, you could sell for $250,000 or more. The more the better. But even like as low as $250,000, a couple $100,000. You put that on the market, chances are you'll get an offer in 3 days above your asking price. And if that amount above your asking price might be the amount you still owe on the house, that's how crazy it is. And I've seen countless people talk about this, right? And so, so suddenly you've got a couple $100,000 in the bank. You're, maybe 10 years away from retirement, because everyone, if you're at an age where you can retire at 62, you're a fool not to. You really should. Right? Because that interim time between, where they dangle that carrot of saying, oh, you're going to get more money if you wait another 5 or 6 years or something like that. Well, you have to look at life expectancy and how long it would be, the balance of that amount of money that they're dangling in front of you, that it would take you like another 10 years or more, even more than that, to actually where that would balance out. So it's like, no, if you have the ability to retire at 62, retire at 62. And if you could sell your house, and scale down and buy a 50 grand house, which there are plenty of. And if you're in your 50s, I mean, do you really? Because remember, suddenly your taxes go down, right? Your insurance goes down, and obviously your mortgage goes down. Well, you could buy the place for cash, so you wouldn't even have a mortgage. And suddenly you could retire early, or just like, if you're married, one or the other of you could just quit your job. And probably one of you could just have a gig type of gig work or part-time job and live free. You know? That's what I'm trying to say. It's the quality of life that matters. And people keep forgetting that. And that's what this show is all about. And it's always been about that. I'm just trying to share this with you. I'm going to get a couple ice cubes. So I'm going to do that thing I do when I go to get ice cubes. All right. I'll be right back. This is only going to take I'll only be gone for for less than 30 seconds. Wow, that was kind of loud. I didn't realize. Bob Thompson's Starfire. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't realize how loud that was. Anyway, hope it didn't blow your speakers.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm back. Got the ice cubes. See? It's not like I have much soft drink left. And I could already hear some trucks or something doing something out there. Trying to get comfortable here, man. It's a pain. Ah, the white handkerchief. I have to do wash my bedding today because it's just so hot. I got that in the other rooms. That's another thing I got to do today. So, yeah, I'm using the cheap microphone. Things seem to be working out all right. And everything's fine, right? So why not? You know, it's just like, it's great.
Tony Caravan.
I didn't want that.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I wanted that. I want that, you know, and I want that too. I want that. Can I have that, please? Please? The morning show. So you got all these guys who, you know, have skin in the game, as they say, saying that, you know, this house of cards is about to fall. Do you really want to be sitting, you know, in some cookie cutter neighborhood, paying high taxes, maybe almost underwater on your house? Right? Just because, you know, and you have this giant lawn that's basically a golf course, so you could sit on the weekend like your other neighbors on your sit-down mower, right? And do that kind of thing. And then every morning have to get up, you know, during the work week and deal with the rat race, whether you, have to commute, you know, by car or train or whatever. I've done all those things, by the way. Taking the commuter trains to work, drove through traffic to work, everything, dealt with inclement weather, dealing with, because living in the north, the snow, right? Or just sweating stuck in traffic on the, the Pacific Coast Highway, the PCH, they call it. I lived in Malibu, and I lived in Big Rock. It's like one of the canyon roads. I didn't live on the beach. I lived overlooking the ocean, which actually was better because I knew people who lived on the beach. So if I wanted to go down to the beach, there was these girls that had this place. I used to just go down to their place. And I also used to go to there was a place, Alice's Restaurant. I don't know if that's still there. And there were some other bars and other places. And, there were areas of the beach further up that were just kind of open. You could just go walk on the beach if you wanted to, too. But when you lived up in the canyon roads, right, you had this ridiculous, 180 view of the Pacific Ocean. And you could watch the sunset, and it was just beautiful, And I used to live up there, but I had at that time for a while until I eventually just quit. But I was working in the city on Sunset Boulevard. So I used to have to drive. So I'd come down a canyon road, and the Pacific Coast Highway would just be cars, stopped. And so they're nice people. So some nice person would let me in. But you literally would be just stuck in that PCH traffic, And so the radio stations made a lot of money because that was real drive time. People were in their cars, and that was it. You were listening to, K-Rock or whatever, right? You were stuck. And then I used to cut and take Sunset Boulevard, the back all the way up that way. And I used, speed up through there to get to my location, my office. And then I had moved. Eventually, I moved to a place on Sunset Boulevard. It was like a place, if you ever watched that show 90210, there was a swimming pool in the middle, and the units were all surrounded the swimming pool. It's a really nice place. And that was the last place I lived when I left LA. But I lived in a bunch of different places in LA. I lived in Hollywood when I first went there, which is a dump. I mean, kind of. I lived in just a block over from Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills for a little while. And then I lived in Malibu, and then I lived on Sunset Boulevard. So it's four different basic LA places where I lived. I knew LA like the back of my hand. And there were three different times, because I came back east, do various things. Because I lived on the East Coast too, at the shore. But I was three different times I went back to LA, to do work and stuff. And then back, came back east. And I drove, So that's how I got to know the country. But what does that have to do with anything? Nothing. It's just a Tony Caravan, another little anecdote. So, the price of everything. So you say, okay, well, maybe these guys are just doomsayers, right? The Chicken Little thing. Sky's falling. People have been saying this for years. Well, not really, because, People predicted the 2008 thing. This stuff happens cyclically, cyclically. And so just like Earth catastrophes are cyclical, right? The sun, which people don't pay attention to. They leave the sun out. Whenever they talk about climate, they always talk about, 0.004 CO2 or something weird like that. But they neglect the 400-pound gorilla or elephant in the room, 800-pound, whatever. It's the sun. What about that big ball that gives us, that's making its heat? And by the way, it's a dog days of summer and, we're just having a heat wave. That's all. And it's not even that bad because I remember years gone by when instead of it being in the 80s, it would be in the 90s, right? And nighttime, the temperature wouldn't drop below 80. At least we're getting down to 70s and the 60s this weekend. So this isn't even a bad, And there's always spots and certain, there's hot spots. That's where that term comes from. It just happens. It's the way it is. It's, it's life. But let's get back to this insanity, like the idea of what I'm saying is that making sense of the insanity, because we have to live through this, get through it, right? And one way of doing it is to, get your life together and have your own world. For me, I found that, I've turned, so I have that world. I have this world where I make my own food, grow my own garden, it's like, that's the kind of thing. And so, and there's, and there's other things I do. I do this too. This is like kind of a catharsis process, and I'm sharing things, and this is idea of this neural plasticity of the brain. And the idea is to program yourself like where I'm into like service to others, so to speak. I'm not, this isn't, there's no greed involved here because I don't make money on this. So the idea is I'm sharing, I'm trying to be open, I'm telling stories, I'm trying to, help people, try to be happy, try to have, in some ways,
really funny. Really funny. What do you mean I'm funny?
a little bit of morning humor, little craziness. And, and that's, and life, and live life. And hopefully we all end up a little bit better off in the long run. Sharing experiences. But, there may have other things that your life is completely your own. So you have other things that you want to do and things that make you happy. But the goal in life should be to be happy, the pursuit of happiness. I mean, that's it. Reduce stress, right? Live well, have a good quality of life. But a good quality of life doesn't mean being a wage slave or having this tremendous amount of stress. And there are ways where you can scale down your life to live a happy life and have a good quality of life. And the idea is, so the question you have to ask yourself, what are the things that make you happy? And can you still have those things by scaling down and becoming less stressed and less of a wage slave or a commuter or whatever it may be? And I think in most cases, the answer you're going to find is yes, you can do it. It's just you got to think it through, and you can't do it overnight, but, time's starting to, run out. And so, this it's like a game of musical chairs. You don't want to be left standing when the music stops. And the music's playing now, and everybody's like going around the musical chairs. I wonder if anybody ever does that stuff anymore. And, so how long is the music going to play? And right now they're playing it. It's like, they're playing us like a fiddle, right? all these expressions. They're so funny, but they're so accurate, and they just make so much sense. It's the thing. But yeah, the music's being played, and it's being played by the media and the politicians, who are really the corporatocracy. And they're playing this music, and everybody's like just laughing and just running, running around this row of chairs. But the music's going to stop, and you're going to be left, or somebody's going to be left standing without a chair. And you don't want that to be yourself. So that's the idea, and whatever else other way you want to do it. The whole house of cards is going to, has a potential of falling. I mean, it's not just that people are buying these houses and you've got, which is a form of inflation, where you have these people talking about isolated areas already where you're paying $6 a gallon for gas. All right. How would you like to be a commuter paying $6 a gallon for gas in an SUV? All right. Right. Or like a Hummer, that gets like 6 miles to the gallon. All right. The price of lumber. All right. Food prices are rising. Taxes are rising. So, you got to see the writing on the wall. All of these things, they're just these adages, expressions, But I'm just going to say them because they all make sense. Right? You got to see the writing on the wall. And so when the billionaires, the people who have everything to lose, because to them money's everything, their lifestyles, their yachts, their island getaways, their houses in, France, their beach houses, their chateaus, whatever. They don't want to lose that because that's everything to them. Their private jets. So when those type of people start, saying, hey, we're going to be facing a depression, either, by the fall or next year at the latest. Well, it's like that old E.F. Hutton commercial. If you're old enough to remember that. When E.F. Hutton speaks, and everybody in the room looks, over. Well, E.F. Hutton says, right? And so that's what we're seeing right now and hearing. So, get your ducks in a row. I'm just wondering how many expressions, these classic expressions I'm using in today's show. Get your ducks in order. So, I mean, that's the insanity. And then beyond that, you have this thing that's been going on for 2 years that I can't really talk about because, it's verboten. And we don't know what's going on with that. We got strange things like birds dying, which is scary. And hopefully, like I said, is not the canary in the coal mine for the next big thing. You've got totalitarians and authoritarians trying to do this, that, the other, to gain like absolute control. Your papers, please. I even have that thing here somewhere.
Your papers, please.
They really want that. That's what they're working on. And then you have stuff that's not making the news, like these insane revolutions going on in different parts of the world. Like South Africa is like completely out of control. The reports coming out from there, visuals, videos too, hundreds of thousands of people. One guy described it as like, it looked like a scene from like a zombie apocalypse, like that movie, Something Z with Brad Pitt, whatever that was. That's how one guy described it in South Africa. And then, of course, Cuba has been going through, craziness. And there's similar stories coming out of France, Ireland, right? And meanwhile, you've got, flooding in Germany. And, of course, we still don't know what's going on with the communist Chinese. They still got their gulags and all that kind of crazy stuff. And then people are just playing, and in South America, nothing's changed down there. Venezuela and stuff. Could you imagine? It's just these things are like, they sometimes just like in passing mention them, but they're generally out of the public consciousness, right? And so the world is just like going through this insanity. There are reporters from the UK that talk about, ridiculous draconian things, laws being passed there. And, and this whole World Economic Forum is just pushing this stuff as this and they use, that ridiculous phrase, the new normal. That's what the Great Reset is. And so it's insane. And so, you got to navigate through this somehow. You got to make sense of the insanity without going insane. That's the secret. And so my feeling in answer to that, to all of this craziness is, A, be aware that this is going on. The possibility even. He's like, better safe than sorry, another expression. Another expression, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. That's the kind of way, that's my approach. Not some extreme thing, but yeah, hope for the best, plan for the worst. Better safe than sorry. There's just a lot of signals, out there that are pointing to, things getting even more insane. And things are pretty insane now. And this show, I avoid politics because it's a waste of time, because I don't believe in politics anymore. I believe it's a corporatocracy. And I believe these people at the top, the Davos set, I believe it's an organized crime syndicate. I'm sorry. That's the way they behave. That's the way it is. It's what it looks like to me. And I don't believe that there's any cult of personality hero that's going to ride in on a white horse and save the day. We've long passed that point in the structure of nations. Nations are now corporatocracies. So big tech, big pharma, military contractors, Wall Street, central banks, there are too many interests by the corporatocracies, because the various nations are corporatocracies, that are applying too much pressure and have too much control over a society. And so these politicians, their words mean nothing. They could promise the world. But when they get in office, they are powerless because they have to answer to the corporatocracy, which is in control. For crying out loud, they took, like I said, Congress shall make no law abridging free speech, but the corporatocracy decided, well, the heck with the Constitution, we'll just create something called terms of service. So the Constitution giveth, and the terms of service taketh away. Right? And people won't get that through their head. And that's the insanity. That's the insane world we live in right now. So what you have to do is find happiness. The pursuit of happiness. You have to find a way to be as less dependent upon the corporatocracy as possible. And to be, and it all boils down to like how much do you really need? How big a house do you really need? How many things do you really need? How many credit cards do you really need? Do you see? This living in this material world, right? And the idea is that I'm all for technology. I have it. I use it. I'm coming to you through it. And I'm not saying anything about getting rid of it. I'm not a Luddite. Okay? I'm more into technology than the average person. But what I'm saying is that you got to live sensible. And if you want to live free and you want to live stress-free and you want to have a long and happy life and a good quality of life, you've got to seriously take inventory of your life, of yourself, what you're doing, look ahead, look where you're going, look what the next 5 years, project yourself into the next 5 years. Consider the possibility that if there is a depression, right? If this house of cards does fall down, if these authoritarians create this totalitarian state, right? What does that mean for you, when all this, when it's like done, said and done? And so you've got some breathing room now. Like I say, the music is still playing and you're running around the chairs. The point is, at some point, whether it's this fall or next January or something after the holidays, either way, that music is going to stop, and it's going to stop soon. And you don't want to be left without a chair. So think about that. And so that's kind of it, and like I said, you got to make sense of this madness. You got to, live in this crazy world. Otherwise, you're going to go insane like that character in my, my meme, my title card for the Today Show. You're going to go crazy. Like I said, I found mine. There's my little, little bar, and I grow my own food. Homegrown lettuce and tomatoes, there's nothing like it. And I've got more than that type of stuff growing out there. I'm growing all kinds of stuff. In fact, I'm planning. That's why today I've got to, And remember, this is the infrastructure joke. Like they're going to fix the infrastructure, digging up the road 3 times. So forget about that. These false promises. They're not going to do it. Trust me. If this is one street in one city out of the entire country, how many streets are there in this city? How many streets are there in this state? And then how many streets are there in the various 50 states? And so that's the absurdity and the lies that are being, and the games, the mind games they're playing with you. Oh, we're going to do this infrastructure thing. It's like the latest one I heard was something about some child tax credit or something is going to save poverty. And I'm going, how? How? If you live below the poverty line, you already get everything free. See, I live below the poverty line. I say this all the time, and I'm not ashamed to say this. Because I don't care. I mean, I have a house. I paid for it. I worked my whole life. I worked hard. The things I have here are my own, right? But because I live below the poverty line, I get free health care, absolutely free health care, no copay. I get food assistance if I want it, all right? Free food, okay? And since I own my own house, I don't need it, but people who live below the poverty line, they get what they call Section 8 housing, or they get housing like money towards housing. And then there's all kinds of other benefits in quotes, that they get. Right. And they do get, and the more children they get, the more money they get. Right. That's how the welfare system is set up. So it's like they make these statements as if like, that's the funny thing I always found even about when they had these healthcare arguments. Because I was going like, it's not the poor that need healthcare. The poor have always had free healthcare. The safety net has been around since Roosevelt. All right. World War II days after the Depression. Right. So, the media is are liars. They're just propagandists. They're playing games. It's the people, and the very rich, well, they don't have any problems in the world, right? And the upper middle class are fine. It's the wage slave. It's that there's this niche group that they ignore that are the ones that they never seem to do anything about. And what I'm trying to say is that if you find yourself in that position, you need to get out of that, because that's not the place. First of all, if you have a job and you're a wage slave, that job is probably going to be eliminated within the next year or so. We're becoming a delivery society. So if you work in restaurants, unless you're in major markets where people still go to restaurants. But everything's being delivered now. Walmart even delivers now in many areas. Walmart. You go online and they'll deliver. I'm talking about produce, food, anything. There's a place I've used. I'm not going to push these particular companies, but I can get on the computer right now and I could order grapes, cereal, laundry detergent, potatoes, a red onion, you name it, any kind of thing. And I have it delivered here within an hour or two, and they'll just set it on my front porch in these nice bags with handles on it. I don't even see the person. And you can online just give them a little tip. And that's it. You've seen the self-checkout lanes. They've been around forever, for a decade now, over a decade. So it's like deliver the food, deliver the groceries, deliver this, the household items, right? The factories, the shelves are being stocked by these robotic things, fast food. More and more fast food restaurants are having kiosks. So you just go in, so they're getting rid of the people who used to work behind the counters. They're using robotics now to make pizzas and flip burgers, so you don't get a job flipping burgers. This, wake up to that. Factories are becoming fully automated. And meanwhile, people have student debts and stuff, and they've got degrees in these weird social issues but they have no function. And it's like these guys that I try to show you outside they keep digging up the roads, because they don't have trades. They don't know anything. Anyway, I think I got the message across. So try to make some sense of the insanity by getting your act together. Become aware of what's going on. Take inventory of your life, not just your finances, but your life. What is it that makes you happy? What kind of quality of life do you expect? All right. Like I say, for me, I have my house, I have my garden, I have this, I have my music, I have things. And for you, I'm sure you have other things. And some people have family and their children and, all kinds of interests. But whatever it is, can you have that same quality of life by scaling down and being less, away from this, what they're doing, this corporatocracy, this craziness, this madness that's starting to just take hold. And once it takes hold, it's done. Like I say, I call this the former United States, and I'm not joking. So anyway, take care. All right. Thanks for watching. Visit TonyCaravanLive.com and get a shirt or something. You know, buy some of my gear. Or, you know, support the channel. You know, subscribe to the YouTube thing. Or visit my locals. I'm on locals, TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. But go to TonyCaravanLive.com. It's just a basic website. I intend to build it out. It's one of those other things I just haven't gotten around to. But there's enough stuff there to take you to where you need to go and get the things you need to get. So help the channel out. I don't make any money on this. I really don't. Anyway, have a great weekend. I'll